Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, friends. It's Kathy Mazak from Scholar's Voice, and I'm excited to talk to you about today's episode, but actually today's episode weighs a little bit heavy on me because I'm talking about something that actually feels like a failure a bit. And I'm not used to, publicly announcing my failures. And some people might say there is no failure, there's only learning experiences. But truthfully, I'm going to get into why accepting some things as failures is really important. So today I'm going to be talking about the consequences of delaying the right decision. And I'm going to talk very personally and specifically about over the past year, where the consequences of delaying the right decision for me cost me both emotionally and financially. So I want to kind of talk about that, be really as transparent as one can through the podcast medium about what's happened over the past year in our business and in my career, which of course my career and this business of Scholar's Voice they are one thing, really. And I want to then as I'm talking about what's happened to me over the last year and how I delayed making the right decision and what the consequences were, I've come up with a set of questions to help you decide whether you've been delaying making the right decision. And I'm going to be applying kind of all of my still in process lessons learned to the academic journey. And so they might be helpful for you. So this podcast is about to get a little bit real. Before I get started, though, I want to say that this week, if you're listening live, is the last week to apply for and join our next cohort of Navigate. We are accepting applications. There's a 3-step application process. So if you're listening on Tuesday when this episode drops, you need to apply today because the other steps in the process are taking a short benchmark assessment and scheduling and having a call with me. And the last day to have those calls is tomorrow, Wednesday. And then the last day to sign up is August 4th, which is Friday. So if you're listening in real time and live, go to scholarsvoice.org/navigate, find the pink button, which should say apply, and go ahead and submit your application. If you are not listening in real time, you're listening sometime later, that pink button should say waitlist. And so you can go ahead and get on the waitlist for our next cohort of Navigate Your Writing Roadmap. All right, so the consequences of delaying the right decision. So I want to talk about an experience that I've had and I've been working through since May of 2022. So over a year now. In May of 2022, I had an intensive with my coach, Natalie Miller, who is going to be on the podcast in an upcoming episode. And if you haven't heard me talk about her before, you're going to get all of her information then when she's a guest on the podcast. But basically, I had signed up for a one-on-one coaching with her. And part of the package was that she flew to Puerto Rico and we had a 2-3 day intensive together where we worked on what I really want next in my career and my business. And as I said before, for me right now, because I've left academia, I resigned from my tenure track position, and I've been running this business full time since 2019. My career and my business are very much entangled, right? So I am creating my career, my current career, through the, as I will say, right, the container of this small business, which is called Scholar's Voice. And of course, also, just as it is for you, making the right decisions and deciding the path of my career and figuring out what I really want to create with my career is also intimately tied up with what I want to create for my life, right? Because how we think about our careers and how much time we spend on the career, what kind of activities go into the career. I mean, it's all your life, right? So there is no clear separation between my career and my life. I try to contain my career in certain ways, but what I do in my career absolutely affects my life, just as it does for you. So as you might assume, I have pretty strict boundaries and for myself around the time that I dedicate to my career, my working life, this business. And I've decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to work, the number of hours that I was working in academia. And that is 40 hours a week, to be clear. Like I don't want to work 8-hour days. And so that means because I have complete time flexibility and control over my time, since I'm the CEO and owner of the place that I work, I really get to decide exactly how I want to live out my career, exactly how I want to create this business. And as you might imagine, that's both wonderfully liberating and confusing. And the confusing part is really figuring out what I want, like really being in tune with my own inner voice and trusting myself and what my inner voice says and creating what I want to create for my career, for my life, and in the world. And I hope that as you hear that, you are thinking, how can I do that within the container in which I'm working? So I really believe that most of us can do that. Even if you aren't the CEO of a company, or if you haven't created the institution in which you work, which is my case, you still are the owner and CEO of your career. So thinking about what you want for that career and culling away what everybody else wants, or turning off what everybody else wants and really listening to what you want and then taking the actions to create it. That is a lot of powerful work. And that's why I hired Natalie as my coach to help me through that. And truly, I will say that ever since I started running this business full time, I've been asking myself the question, what do I want? Like, what do I really want from this business? And a little bit as well, and I encourage you to ask yourself the same, like, what is the end game here? What is this business going to be in 10 years? What is it going to be in 20 years if it even exists? Like, where is this going? And again, I encourage you to think about that for yourself in your career. What do I want? And what is the end game? What does the end of my career look like? My stage before retirement? Like, what does that look like? So I was like grappling with all of those questions really for quite some time, like definitely through 2020, 2021. And then at the beginning of 2022, I guess, is when I signed up to work with Natalie, as my coach. And we had this intensive in May of 2022. So at that intensive, because she's such a skilled coach, she really helped me to clarify what it is I want. And I pretty much figured it out. Not as clear as I am now, but that was my first step to clarity. And what I realized during our time together in that intensive was that I had created a very complicated business. I think at that time I had, if I didn't have 3, I had 4 programs. Some of you will remember And if you listen to the back catalog of this podcast, you'll remember Momentum, which was like a writing community membership thing that we had for a while. Navigate has been the constant through all of it. We had a program called Amplify that was like a pre-tenure mastermind type high-level coaching program. And then we had our Elevate program, which was our post-tenure program. So there were so many pieces and parts to those programs that it had gotten like really complicated to deliver. And I had 3 coaches. I had Gina, Thea, and Rocio working for me. I had several people on the back end in terms of like Paulette doing the operations. And it had just gotten to the point where it felt heavy and it felt confusing. And that I knew also that the kinds of questions we were getting when people would enroll in Amplify and Navigate, they were like, well, what is the difference between these 2 programs? Because both of them were very much about writing and publishing. So it was like, yeah, what is the difference between those 2 programs? And I remember an exercise that Natalie had me do, like one of the first exercises she had me do on the retreat was to take my camera and set a timer and go take pictures. Like, don't think about it. Just look around. We stayed at the Dreamcatcher, which is where we're holding our retreat, August 4th through 9th, our writing retreat. It's a place that is it's like bohemian and very like tropical with outdoor courtyards and outdoor showers and like near the beach and lots of like pretty little nooks and spaces and flowers and fountains and things. And so she's like, go through the courtyard, just take pictures of whatever calls your attention. So I did that. And then I came back and we looked at the pictures together. So you know how you can look like on your iPhone, you can see the pictures, like your library of pictures rather than just each picture one at a time. So we looked at the library of pictures and she asked me like, what do these have in common? And interestingly, I had taken a bunch of really close up pictures of things, like little details, super close up. And we kind of took that, we jumped off of that metaphor and talked about what I really wanted was focus. And so from there, we really dug into, well, what is focus? How do you create it? What does it mean? And all of these things. And part of the outcome of, among many other things, but part of the outcome of that intensive was the idea that I had too many programs. I had too many program parts. We were launching too often. And all of that felt heavy and confusing and complicated. And that what I really needed to do was have one program that was a writing and publishing program and one program that was a leadership and legacy program. So like some kind of next level leadership, legacy, doesn't necessarily have to be mid-career. Like it doesn't have to do with career stage. That was the other thing. It's like, I wanted to break this difference between like, oh, if you're in this career stage, you take this. If you're in that career stage, you take that. No, I wanted to create like, okay, well, if you have a writing and publishing problem, then you take this program. And if you have a leadership and legacy problem, then you take this program. So that idea was hatched in May of 2022. At the same time, like during that time, we were launching our Navigate program, or we were enrolling our Navigate program. And at that time, Navigate was a year long. It had all of these different parts to it. And again, it was confusing. Like who should take Navigate? Who should take Amplify? It was all rather confusing. So May 2022, I have this realization, we need 2 programs. A first program and a second program. Everybody should take the first program before they can go to the second program, potentially. And I knew that's what I had to do. And also that the program parts, like the things we offered as part of the program, needed to be simplified. It was too many parts. And that the reason that I had put all these program parts in the program was this like fear of like, are people going to find it valuable? You know, like I need to put more things in it to make it more valuable, which of course is not true. You need to offer more quality things to make it more valuable. So I knew that in May 2022. But I was too scared to do anything about it. So this goes back to that, the consequences of delaying the right decision, right? So I knew in May 2022 that I needed to simplify my programs and have only 2. and that was really going to help me create the business that I wanted. However, I did not do that because of fear. One fear was actually that I had hired 3 coaches. Like I had 3 coaches working for me, and they were all excellent, excellent coaches. And if I simplified things too much, then I might not have work for them. So it was scary for me to think about that. Like, oh, I'll have to let somebody go. But as I kept going, like managing the coaches, managing all the program parts, increasingly felt heavy. And so again, instead of making the right decision, which was to go to 2 programs only and simplify them, I hired a really wonderful program manager because it was so upsetting to me, not upsetting, but it was so heavy for me to manage the programs that I thought the answer was, well, then I'll just hire somebody to manage the program so I can go and just concentrate on something else. And at that time, I was also thinking, you know what? Maybe I want to build this business so that I can exit, so I can sell it. You know, I built this thing, somebody else can come be the CEO, somebody else can run it, and I'll just be the owner, or I'll sell it and get a payout, right? So at that time, I was looking to hire a program director, and I think I did. I'm not sure of the timeline there, but I had hired Carla, who you might have heard on the podcast before, to manage our programs and to standardize them and help make our delivery more smooth and effective. And really to take me out of that program director role, because I was wearing that hat as well as the CEO and the marketing director and everything. So again, I knew what I needed to do. The right decision was not actually to hire somebody else. The right decision was to simplify the programs and actually let go of people. I was too scared to do that. And I got this idea in my head that I didn't really want to manage the programs, but I couldn't let anybody go. And I was afraid to close programs because I'm like, if we close programs, then I can't pay everybody and then I'll have to let people go. So that's where my head was. And I started to learn about selling a business. So I started to learn about selling a business of this kind, of what Scholar's Voice is. So Scholar's Voice is very much dependent on me. It was built as a personal brand, right? You'll remember if you've been here for a while that it was called Kathy Mazak. The company was called Kathy. It still is, but we're doing business as Scholar's Voice. We just, in January, February of 2023 is when we did our big renaming, although of course that had been in the works for like at least 6 months before that. So all of these things are happening. And I'm like, okay, I'll hire a program director and I'll build this company so I can sell it. And then I don't have to make these hard decisions or feel the weight of this business anymore. And that's where I was when I reached out to Carrie Ann Rockamore. Carrie Ann Rockamore is the founder and creator of the NCFDD program, which many of you know about and have done. So she built that business. I went into my podcast app and I searched for her name. And she doesn't do a ton of interviews, but I found every interview about her. Like I bought her book. I was all internet stalking her. But of course, she has improved her life so much that she has removed herself from social media. So do not look for the woman on Instagram. She is not there. But I managed to make contact with her. And I had heard her on a podcast say that one of the things that she does now that she has basically successfully built NCFDD was that she mentors entrepreneurs. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so great to talk to her. So I finally managed to make contact with her. I asked her if she would be willing to talk to me. And she graciously, we made an appointment and had a phone call. And I asked her all my questions. I was like, okay, I'm thinking about building the business like this and this and this and that. And she was so lovely and so honest and straightforward. And my takeaway from the conversation was she is wonderful and amazing. And I don't want to do what she did. I don't want to build a business as big as she built her business because I am unwilling to do the amazing and incredible amount of work that she did. Like it became clear, like, what does it take to actually build a sellable business? What does it take to build a business of the size of NCFDD? Like she told me what it took and I was like, no, thank you. Like obviously I didn't say that she doesn't have anything invested in whether I continue to grow my business or not or whatever. She was just like being so honest and thoughtful. And it had a great takeaway from that conversation, which is like, okay, I don't want this. So back to the question of what do I want? And back to the looming, the decision I knew was right, which was to simplify the programs and have only 2. I knew that was the right decision in May. And I don't know when. I should have looked up when I actually talked to Carrie Ann, like November or something. And I had already hired Carla and like we were trudging along. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this information, still delaying the right decision, still continue to delay the right decision, though I felt clearer. I continued to feel like, okay, well, what am I going to do? So I joined a new coaching program that November 2023 with Jerisha Hawk. If any of you are interested in starting a business, go find Jerisha Hawk on Instagram and follow her. Because if I were to go do it all again, I would do it Jerisha's method from the beginning. So I joined this new program and one of the things that she talks about is owner's intent. And your owner's intent is different from your company's mission. So the mission of Scholars Voice, the mission of our company is to change the culture of academia one person at a time through offering these amazing career altering programs. And, it's very aspirational. It's a mission. So then I was like, my owner's intent. The owner's intent is the purpose for your business. And I encourage you to think about this as well. I encourage you to think both about for your career, what is the mission, right? Your academic mission statement, and what is the purpose? Like what role does the career have in your overall life, right? So for me, I'm just going to be like very transparent because some people are like, you don't tell people this, but I'm telling you. The mission is to change academia, change the culture of academia by offering amazing programs, by making individual women and non-binary academics happier with their careers, right? And that's the mission of the business. But the purpose of the business is to provide a career for me and to provide a paycheck for me and to support my family and my retirement. Now, that is the purpose of the business. If the business doesn't do that, then I'm not going to do it. I'll just go get another job. When you ask yourself that, like, what is the purpose? Like, what is your mission, right? But then what's the purpose? For a lot of people who are operating in a container they don't create themselves, then the purpose is the same, right? Like to provide you with a career that supports your family and provides for your retirement or whatever is that purpose of your career. Maybe the money is not the main purpose, right? The supporting you is not the main purpose, but rather maybe it's the enriching your life and giving you something that is purposeful to work on. So whatever, but there's a difference between mission and purpose, or owner's intent, as Jerisha Hawk would say. So when I was taking the training about owner's intent, and she was like, okay, here's an example. What's your owner's intent? And I was like, oh, well, owner's intent is to provide for me and my family, like to provide a career for me and support my family and provide for my retirement. Notice that it's different from like a software startup where the owner's intent is often, not always, but like that startup venture capital model, right? Where like the owner's intent is to build something and then sell it and take a payout, right? Like, so you operate the business, potentially losing money for years and years until you get it to a sellable point, and then you have a big cash payout. It's like a very different type of purpose, right? For building a business. No, my business needs to be profitable now and always because it needs to provide a career for me. Okay, so this is all going to connect up very soon. So don't worry. It's all going to connect up to you and back to the consequences of delaying the right decision. So as I kept thinking about these things, the right decision got clearer. So when I figured out my owner's intent, I was like, oh, wait. And I figured I didn't want to grow a business that I was going to sell. And I figured out what the owner's intent was. At the same time, I think kind of across the board in small businesses that offer like online education and training, we've seen a dip in enrollment. So in 2020 and 2021, everybody was at home. They were used to being online. They didn't have any other choice but to be online. And so we had really high enrollment in our programs. But what happened in the fall of 2023 was that we started a cohort of Amplify, I guess, in September of 2023. And we had expected to enroll 30 people, and we enrolled like 15 tops. That was half. And then in October and November, we were enrolling for our Elevate program. Our previous cohort of Elevate had been 25 people. So we were like, we'll probably do between 20 and 25 again. 10. And so when you're talking about like these programs enrolling half, that means that half the revenue came in. So we burned through our savings. So we had business expenses. For one brief shining moment, I had 3 months of business expenses in the bank, and we burned through it. All of it really on salary, right? On personnel. Because we had 4 people in programs, 2 of them were full-time. There was another person who was almost full-time. And so it was just very heavy to pay everyone. And so we burnt through our savings just paying people. And so we hit a point in like January of this year, of 2023, that it became obvious that our business was not sustainable on the revenue that was coming in. So the consequences of delaying the right decision, in February, I had to let go of 3 of the 4 people in programs. Like I didn't have the money to pay them. And so the consequences of delaying the right decision was that, for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, maybe for 8 months, I overspent on salaries, and we burned through all our cash, ran up the business credit cards. And so one of the consequences of delaying the right decision, which I could have made in May 2022 had I just had the guts to do it, and maybe somewhat if I had the know-how to do it. One of the consequences is that we are now with, I'll just be honest, we are with 0 cash reserves and we are in debt. And on top of it, I had to do the thing that I was most scared to do, which was let people go. So all I did by delaying the right decision, which I could have made, and I knew what it was, pretty much in May 2022. What I did by delaying the right decision was the painful part of why I was delaying, which was that I didn't want to let people go. And I didn't want to kill programs because the programs are my babies too. I had to do that anyway. I had to do it anyway. But instead of doing it while I had 3 months of everybody's salary in the bank, I had to do it in debt. So instead of doing it in a comfortable way, I had to do it in like a dire way. And that meant that I had to tell people that I needed to let them go. And I always try to give people, well, not always, because it's the first time I've done this. I wanted to give people like lots of time to figure their stuff out before I had to stop paying them. So I didn't want to give 2 weeks notice, but I would run out of money. Like I wasn't going to be able to pay them. It was horrible. So the consequences of delaying the right decision were that I had to go through more pain because I delayed the right decision than if I had just started in May to take actions toward the right decision instead of taking actions down another path. Now, did I learn a lot? I learned a ton. Did it take me a while to do that learning? It took me a while to do that learning. And it wasn't all crystal clear in May. But I knew what the right decision was in May, and I didn't make it. So how might this apply to you? Okay, I've come up with a set of questions for you that you can think about. And then I will tell you what's going to happen in the future of our company and how I recovered and the happy ending part of the story. But first, let me give you some questions to think about. So, how is delaying the right decision comfortable for you? So, for me, in this example, delaying the right decision was I didn't have to kill programs. I didn't have to let go of programs that I had built and felt like there were sunk costs there. I didn't have to fire anybody or let anybody go. Then ask yourself this question. So the first question is, how is delaying the right decision comfortable? The second question is, how is delaying making the right decision just delaying discomfort? How is it just putting off something that's you're going to have to face it someday? So all you're doing is delaying the discomfort. All right, that's the second question. And the third question is, how is delaying the right decision causing you discomfort right now? So a lot of times when we are delaying making the right decision, we're doing that in order to avoid discomfort, but we're not recognizing that we're actually also causing ourselves discomfort right now. So the way that my coach talks about this, Natalie Miller, she says, how is your worst fear already true? The thing you're avoiding, how is it already happening right now? That's the third question. How is delaying making the right decision causing you discomfort today? And then some more questions here. How is delaying making the right decision costing you emotionally and financially? Right? Emotionally and financially. For me, this last year has been a roller coaster of emotions, and it also has been very expensive financially. Delaying the right decision literally cost me tens of thousands of dollars. So, how is delaying the right decision costing you, both emotionally and financially? How is delaying making the right decision robbing from your future? Robbing from a future that is brighter, that is more aligned, that is happier for you? How is the delay robbing you of that more wonderful future and outcome? And related, right? How is delaying making the right decision postponing your happiness? How is it postponing your happiness? You think that you're, postponing discomfort, but you're also postponing your own happiness if you know something is the right decision and you don't take action towards that decision. All right. I hope that those questions help you dig into your career. And I want to know, think about it. What's a decision that you know you should make that you are delaying because you're trying to avoid some discomfort? Maybe there's a project you're on that you want to delay, that you're afraid to confront, or you want to avoid confronting people and saying, hey, I want off this project. Ask yourself this set of questions about that. Are you in the right job? Are you ready for something else? If you know the right decision is to change jobs, change institutions, then ask yourself this set of questions about delaying making that right decision. If you know it's the right decision, go through the question set and think about that. And then even for those of you who have been listening for years and you've thought about doing our Navigate program for years, but you're delaying spending the money, you're delaying making the time commitment. How are you robbing yourself of your future happiness, of the career that you really want, by delaying making the right decision, which is to do Navigate now? Do that professional development now so that you can get out of discomfort. It's uncomfortable to spend $4,500 on a program. Yes, it is. It's uncomfortable. If it was comfortable, then it would be too easy to do it. And I've been there too. Just pay for a program and not do it. That's not what we want. It is purposefully a little bit uncomfortable, the price point of Navigate, $4,500, $4,500. Are you like, oh, I want to avoid that discomfort? But what you're really doing is delaying making that right decision, delaying your happiness, delaying your future. What is it costing you to continue to struggle alone versus to create a career based with writing at the center, to create that in a supportive environment with supportive peers and a coach or two? So the end of the story, of course, the story's not over, but I will say, and what we're doing is we are really going all in on this idea of 2 programs. We have retired our Amplify program forever. We won't be bringing Amplify back. Instead, we created this 12-week version of Navigate, which has some aspects that really worked well from Amplify. Navigate has those inside of it now. Most importantly, the group coaching, the consistent group coaching aspect. So that is a really important change, programmatic change. So our writing and publishing program is Navigate Your Writing Roadmap. We will be offering it 3 times a year, a 12-week program. In terms of the second program, the Leadership and Legacy program, I spent a lot of time this year rethinking and tweaking and piloting Navigate. And for whatever that Leadership and Legacy program is, it needs the same amount of time and attention and thoughtfulness and tweaking. So more to come about what that is going to be. But for now, please know that even though it took me 14 months, 15 months, and a lot of discomfort and a lot of money and a lot of emotional strife, that I finally am doing the right decision that I knew was the right decision in May of 2022. It is now finally fully implemented, and we are now getting out of the debt, and we are now implementing a level of simplification. I think you've heard me talk about this on the podcast before. Simple and impactful, simple and impactful. And every week we are making more changes to be more simple and impactful in our programs, but also in our business, like in the institution that I created, right? In the business itself, we are continuing to be more and more simple and impactful and offering for now just 1 program, the Navigate program. And at some point, 2 programs is the way to do it. Like you've probably heard me on this podcast, or if you're on my email list, you've heard we're doing the retreat. We did a tenure prep program this summer. All of those things have been kind of one-off things on the way to getting to the point where 1 program, that's Navigate, can sustain the entire business. We probably will still do a writing retreat next summer. I'm looking at some options, but our main focus right now is on Navigate, our writing and publishing program, and just making it the most effective and awesome as it can possibly be. So more on other things later. And let me just leave you with the idea that the consequences of delaying the right decisions in your own career also could be causing you more harm than good. So if you know in your heart what the right decision is, and in your mind and in your body what that right decision is, I encourage you today to take action towards it, because delaying making the right decision is stopping you from having the career and life that you really want. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. If the right decision for you is to apply for Navigate, you need to do it today. Go to scholarsvoice.org/navigate, find the pink button that says apply now, and send in your application. And I'll be talking to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.